Hey, everybody, welcome to another episode of the Melanated Midlife Podcast, where today we are bringing back a very special guest. My good friend Chandi Satterwhite shared her very emotional story about becoming a full-time caretaker for her mother. Well, she's here to give you an update, and that update includes some very specific tips about how you can be prepared in case you end up in the same scenario. So tune in. We definitely want to hear your comments, and in the show notes, you're actually going to get a link to download a guide for establishing medical or financial or whatever power of attorney so that you can be one step ahead and prepared in case you find yourself in the same scenario. All right, everybody, welcome back to the Melanated Midlife Podcast, where we actually have someone who is not a stranger to the podcast.
I am not.
Miss Chandi Satterwhite, thank you for coming back to visit us again.
I appreciate you inviting me back.
Well, I mean, you came on season 1 and to our surprise, which we never expected to go viral, but you actually being on the episode, sharing your background, your story, the business that you formed, it resonated with a lot of people. And that story number 1, I think we all, we were relating to the human story, but then the services that you provide as a result of that and the pretty much the legacy that is going to be created from it. But as a result of that, I mean, we're educators, and I guess it kind of turned into a teachable moment because we realized that, okay, we need to do service to this. We need to do this justice because people started reaching out.
Yeah.
They had a lot of questions.
Yeah.
It's like, hey, somebody give me that sister's number, tell me how do I reach out to her because I have questions. I have some things that are happening to me and my family where I need to come on and, ask those. And so you decided then and there that, okay, we got to come back.
Yeah.
We've got to teach, we've got to serve, and then life totally changed for you.
Yeah.
So tell us about that.
Yeah. Yes. I mean, after the first episode, literally I had my email started just like click, click, click. It was kind of like a popcorn situation. And when I say that, it was just different ones, signing up for, information. And then there were some that signed up and said, hey, I need your help, guide me. And when that happened, I mean, I was pumped. I was ready to roll. I was like, oh my goodness, it was really exciting. But literally, I say 2 weeks after that, my mom, her life changed. She got sick. We were in the middle of that hurricane that came and hit us. And the next day, I had to take her to the emergency room. And I'm thinking the same old, because this wasn't nothing new, of her maybe being dehydrated or maybe her, just needing a boost.
Right.
And so I took her to the hospital, and the hospital was so crowded because it was literally hours after that hurricane hit. And so when that happened, they kind of rushed her out. They were like, oh, we checked her blood levels. Oh, we checked this. And looks like she's okay. And I was like, something's not right. And they were like, well, just monitor her. But as of right now, she's good. So I got home, and she never kind of like came back to herself after, they checked all of her blood work and everything. And later on, I said maybe a day or two later, she fell. And just when I say fail, she just dropped on me and kind of fainted. And I'm like, oh my goodness. And called the ambulance, and they came and got her. And she was all awake and everything, but she just was like, I'm dizzy. Anyway, took her to the hospital, and ended up, she had a stroke, which is, had a stroke, and did not come from behind that like she did the first time, and did not come back. And very quickly, it was, you know what, she's not going to make it back out, and, we need to be preparing for hospice care. And I was just like, whoa, 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 whoa. And in the beginning, it was one of those situations where I just felt like she came through the last time, she's going to be just fine. And I was still in that rhythm. And then they just kept pushing hospice, and unfortunately, her cognitive, her physical ability, nothing changed.
Right.
And so we started that, and she passed away 18 days later. Yeah, yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
You know, you sharing. Whoo, shoot. I appreciate you being here,
I do too.
girl. I
Yeah.
mean, we have a history of our
We
own.
do, we do.
And like I said, my memories of your mother are when she was still very young and vibrant. And so, hearing all the stuff that you were going through, ooh, shoot. And then, and then building something,
Yeah.
that was going to hopefully, lead other people down a more caring route. you know.
Yeah.
So you are that advocate for so many other people.
I want to be.
You want to be, but this all turned very, very, very personal very quickly.
It did.
Again.
Yeah, and much quicker.
Yeah. Ooh, okay. So I mean, your work now with dealing with this side of it, and I remember this was not too long ago. You were talking about a particular client
Yeah.
that you did see that family all the way through
Absolutely.
until their parent
Yeah,
transitioned, and
yeah.
you said, "Oh my gosh, this is so deep." It's one thing to recommend care. It's
Right.
one thing to say, "Oh, let me talk about what to ask in your
Right.
doctor's appointments," but then to have something that is going to hold the hand of that person when they have to say goodbye.
Yeah.
And then you had to do that.
Yeah.
I mean, how is
Yeah.
that? I mean, obviously it's affecting you, but what else are you seeing now?
What was so interesting is right before after we did that episode, I think it was probably maybe a week or two, maybe 2 or 3 weeks, that I ended up getting a client that had was recommended by one of our colleagues, and she called me and was so emotional. And I was, in fact, me and my friend Ashley were sitting down working on stuff when she called. And it threw me off because when she called and she was so emotional, I was just like, "Hi, how can I help?" And she's like, "I'm reaching out because I need it." And it really put me in a different place because most of my clients, don't really, they come really just matter of fact. She was in her emotion of, "Hey, I need hospice care. They're telling me my mom doesn't have long." And that kind of put me in a different, how you say it, arena that I hadn't experienced. And so going through her situation and then later having to go through mine, it actually kind of was a little comforting because it ended up that, how you say it, I had walked it with her, and then now it was something that I had to walk through by myself. And it was helpful because, I mean, I'm still learning, and it was so cool to be where I'm like, okay, I remember I did this with my client, and so now I need to do this, for myself and for my own mother. And every situation is different, but it was how you say it, very, very much one of those situations that you just never know. It happened so quickly, and you got to move. I mean, the hospitals are like, okay, this is where we are, and I mean, and you're sitting there in your emotions and trying to figure it out, and well, hold on, let me get another, and they're just like, and you're just like, wow.
They've got other patients.
That's right.
They've got,
they're looking at, I need that bed.
This is every day for them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I need that bed.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm sitting here going, you're telling me to totally cut life off.
Right.
With my mother, and because you need this bed, and I'm sitting here going, this is her life. And so, and you have to act quickly, and that was hard for me in regards to removing the emotions, and at the same time making sure that I'm doing everything I can and advocating that they have done everything they could for my mom.
How has that changed your perspective as far as the care that is needed, both for the patient, for the families? I mean, how has that changed the way you're approaching this as an advocate?
Honestly, it was one of those situations where, again, it kind of goes back to what I did originally and was talking about. of asking all of those questions. And so I sat down, and hospice was new for me. I had, besides that one client, I had never had a client that I dealt with on the hospice side. And so it was one of those where, you dig deeper in talking to all the different doctors that were involved. You dig deeper to go, okay, how long is this how long are we looking at in regards to hospice care? And what's so was interesting is I kept putting asking for a timeline, and they couldn't give me one, which made sense.
Right.
I mean, you just don't know. I mean, some people are 2 or 3 days, some people are months and can go longer. It all depends on the individual, but it definitely was one of those, number one, more sensitivity, because now you're dealing with someone who literally they're saying life is getting ready to come to an end.
Right.
And that was something I was just not ready to. I'm like, oh no, she's had a stroke before. She's come back.
You found a routine and a rhythm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Your mother, there were needs that she had, and your life had adjusted to make sure that those needs were met.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then the shift, you assume that there's going to be a warning,
Right.
a neon
Yes.
sign.
Yeah.
Hey, get ready.
Yeah.
We're moving into phase,
Right.
XYZ.
And I'm like, oh no, we've done this. Oh, we've been in the hospital. She's been dehydrated before, and no. Yeah.
See that? Yeah, we're learning a lot. I mean, but I go back to the fact, number one, I applaud you for being here.
Thank you.
Because you said right before we started recording, what did you tell me about you being here?
I'm here for them.
Them. Stop there.
Yeah.
Tell me about that. You said them.
I did
because
say
we didn't
them.
let you finish your story.
We didn't.
Okay.
My mom passed, and I am one of I guess, let's see. When my parents met, my mom had children in her first marriage, and my dad had children in his first marriage, but I'm the only one between them two. They divorced when I was in middle school. But very close to my dad, very close to my mom. I was daddy's girl. And so my dad doesn't live here in Houston. My dad lives in Corpus Christi. And so I was like, gosh, I need to call my daddy. I need to let him know that mama's passed, My dad was one of those that no matter what, if we talked once or we talked 50 times, he's never going to end that conversation without asking about my mama.
Yeah.
Well, you take care of your mama. How's your mama doing, And so I had called and he's in a nursing facility. And so I had called and was like, he always doesn't charge us. A lot of times he doesn't charge his phone. So I always have to call the front office or whatever and say, hey, can y'all go down there, charge his phone, put him on the line for me. And so I had called the nurse and I said, hey, I have a very sensitive situation I need to talk to my daddy about. Will you go down there? And I said, his phone is not charged. And so she calls me back, and I'm getting on the phone with him, and I'm telling him what's going on. And he couldn't barely hear me. Unfortunately, his auditorial has his hearing is not too well. And so I said, you know what? I said, that's okay. I said, I'll wait till I go down there. And so we have mama's funeral. And the next morning, I told my son, I said, hey, I need to go, see daddy and let him know what's going on. And so I get there, and he's his normal self. And he's just like, baby, what's going on? What, I keep hearing from folk, what's going on? And so I went in and I told him, I said, daddy, I said, mama's passed. And he just kind of looked, and I showed him the program, from her funeral. And he broke down, and you could tell it, it really kind of hurt him a little bit. And we sat there and just kind of in silence, kind of just holding each other's hands and stuff.
Yeah.
And then it wasn't the next day that my brother sends me a message and he says, hey, they rushed daddy to ICU. And I was like, whoa. I mean, less than 7-8 hours that I had been gone. And he went into ICU, was in critical condition, and then next thing I know, literally the same script. They were like, hey, he's on a ventilator. He's not doing too well. It was time for us to, he's not breathing on his own. And then they took they said they're going to take the ventilator off. And so literally within 14 days of my mom, my dad passed. He passed, 15 days later. Yeah. 15 days later. Yeah.
That's unimaginable.
I know. It was,
Unimaginable.
it was one of those like, nah,
Yeah.
It still is. It's still one of those situations where I'm just like, nah.
A little bit, just kind of, like you said, you were numb.
Yeah.
Yeah. Ooh.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, what, it's still new.
Yeah.
And I mean, but what does that feel like to have to process that twice?
I'm going to be honest with you. I'm kind of thankful for it.
Really?
As the days go by, what has really helped me is when I say I'm thankful for it, I'm thankful that I cry for them together.
Okay.
I long for them together. It's kind of one of those, they left together. And that's how I've been able to kind of, on a happy side, It's so funny. I was talking to my aunt and I said, because my mom remarried.
Yes.
And I was just like, I said, do you think, mama's up there with daddy and her new husband, And I was just like, I said, I hope she's being nice to daddy. And, and so I was talking to my friend. So I was talking to my friend Ashley and she was like, girl, ain't no real housewives going on up there like that.
We don't know. We don't know. There's a heavens version of Bravo.
And I was just like, but I know my daddy want to be with my mama. And I'm just like, oh, I said, but her new husband is there too.
See, like I always say, Miss Agnes was a girly girl.
Yes.
I could see her just flaunting around. Yeah. Say, hey, you missing out.
Yes. And so, I mean,
Oh,
that has
Lord.
helped me, is I'm like, oh, I hope mama being nice to daddy up there.
That's
She
cute.
got her new man. But that has helped me. That's been really more of my, they're together, they left together. I mourn them together versus, how you said, and it's a happy thing, I'm just like, because I've always wanted my parents to reconnect.
Don't we all?
Yeah, I did.
All of us have divorced parents, as good, as ugly, as whatever. You still think there's a happy ending somewhere.
Yeah.
And I get, you kind of.
Yeah, I always wanted that. Now, don't get me wrong. I loved my stepdaddy. My stepdaddy was amazing.
Yeah.
But that's what has helped me is that when I think of both of them, I'm like, well, they're together. They, daddy left, loving her. And it was good.
And quite literally, that his last memories might have been of her.
Yeah.
Oh, girl.
Yeah.
This isn't what I was expecting this to come to, but I'm feeling some kind of way about that.
That's what has helped me on the pod, and of course grace and mercy. I mean, I've been so blessed to where I have had a flood of friends and family that are just constantly reaching out.
Yeah.
Text messages and it's hilarious. My son is sending messages to different ones. Please check on my mama. And, it's just little bitty things, and I'm like, I'm good. I'm good. I mean, I said this at the burial site with my mom. I said, I've been blessed with people that on my Austin side that came and supported. And then I get here, I've been here less than a year. And my Houston family, my work family, everyone has been amazing. Amazing.
Awesome. Yeah. Ooh, okay. Well, I mean, you started this, because of your personal experience.
Absolutely.
And now you continue it, I guess, with a stronger resolve.
Yes.
To be that support for folks.
Yes.
Ooh, but I mean, what is it that, from all of this experience, like I said, you've now you are still processing this, and who knows? I mean, a month from now, a year from now, how much more perspective you're going to have as a result. But you were very firm when we spoke last time that there are some questions that you really need to be asking. And I remember, and not too long after that, my own mother, decided to bring things to us.
Good.
And say, hey, here's some things you need to know about.
Good,
My
good.
daddy, old fashioned, has always had a
Good.
lockbox somewhere. This is where the good stuff is.
This is good. That's good.
The old truck driver in him. This is where the good stuff is buried,
That's
locked
good.
up, and everything.
That's good.
But I thought about that because we need to make sure other families are having these conversations, so that you can't prevent, the heartbreak.
Yeah.
You cannot shield yourself from the emotional side, but you can be prepared. You can ask the hard questions
Absolutely.
now.
Yeah.
So what are some of the things that we need to be asking, because you've got a set script that
Yeah.
you want people to talk through with their parents. Tell us about that. I want to talk to all the midlife career baddies out there who are thinking about making some type of career transition. If this is you and you're trying to figure out how do you go from where you are, using that skill set and transferring it into something that is better fitting for this season of life, I want you to go to upskillservices.site and check out my coaching program, where I will work one-on-one with you to get you ready for that next showcase of your career. Join me.
Well, a lot of times you don't really ask, how you said, the specifics of just what do you want, in regards to if you do get sick. Or even just the fact of, I have a coworker who just mentioned he had the conversation with his mom, and his mom was like, "Oh, y'all go on and live your life. Don't be trying to take care of me. Don't worry about me." And he was like, "I'm not going to do that." He goes, "I'm my only son." I said, "I understand." And he said, so it was just stuff like, I says, well, you need to ask her, does she want to be in an assisted living home? Does she, what are her, does she have current ailments now? Does she later want to move into, does she want a home setting? Does she want to stay in her home? And all of those type of questions are mainly how you said, just more of what are their wishes? Because like from my dad, I'll give you an example. My daddy, from when I was 20 years old, was, I want to be cremated. I don't want a service. I don't want none of that. And so now the moment came, and my siblings and I were planning, and I was like, well, maybe we should just have a little small service for him, just. And then I ended up talking to his brothers, which are my uncles, and they were like, you do what your daddy said. You honor what he said. And I was like, you know what? You're right.
It's not about me.
No, it's not. And I was like, well, can we just do a little bit, just something to celebrate? And you do what he asked you to do. So it's those type of things you really want to be respectful of and honor them in what they want to do. But then there also comes those moments too where a lot of times they feel like my mom felt she was a burden.
Really?
She did. She felt like she was, well, whatever you want, I know you got other things to do. And it really wasn't, how you said, of a mindset of being a burden. It was more of being proactive and planning. So that, how you said, those hiccups or those things that come up, you're more prepared for.
Right.
Versus when it happened to me and happened, to my son and I, we didn't have an extra bedroom. Had to get another, stretch out and get another bedroom at our, townhome we were in. We didn't, it was just so much we hadn't prepared for versus, listen, you know what? We're going to make sure moving forward that, we want you to be with us and,
Yeah. And that's assuming you're in a moment where your parent is, there's no cognitive issues. So
That's correct.
You're having this conversation, you're hoping you can have this conversation before there's some cognitive impairments.
Yeah.
But that's one thing to check for. What else are we asking and looking at?
So like when I mentioned in the other episode, first of all, have you gone to the doctors with them to see what their medical situations are? Have you asked those questions in regards to those specific medical things? Let's see what else. Transportation and monetary different issues. Are you going to add them onto your accounts? Are you going to keep just you as the sole decision maker? Or are you willing to go ahead and put in a power of attorney for medical or a power of attorney for finances?
There's different
There's
powers of
absolutely
attorney. Am I saying that power
of
of
attorney.
attorney?
Yeah, yeah,
I got to ask the English teacher how
Yeah.
to say it right. Okay.
yeah. No, you're good. You're good. Yeah.
So what's the difference? Why is there a separation between those two thoughts?
On the medical side, power of attorney on the medical side is where, for example, you go to the doctor and you can sign all the information when you go to the doctor with your parent, or you go to the hospital and they ask, "Do you have medical power of attorney?" Any decision making on the medical side is more on that power of attorney side, versus the financial side that goes into your the banks and the all of the finances of different assets and trust and all of those things. And so those are two different arenas of having access and having permissions to be able to maneuver through that.
Yeah, because I imagine in a crisis situation, and you want to be able to say, no, we're going to do this, or yes, we want to do X, Y, Z, and a doctor says, sorry, you don't have the right to do that, and you're
Correct.
like, that's my mama,
Right.
that's my daddy. This is something that you advocate. Well, not even advocate. That is a requirement.
Absolutely.
Before you're
Yes.
able to take someone on as a client.
Yes.
Yeah.
Like, just for example, just us, my dad wanted to be cremated. And so he remarried. And some of us knew he remarried, some of us didn't.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so when he passed, everyone was just like, hey, we're gonna, one of my siblings was like, let's do this. We're gonna split it. I says, hold on. I says, we can say all of that. I said, but he has a wife.
yeah.
And they were, what do you mean? And I'm just like, yeah. And so then it was, different things that we had to get a hold of her, because unfortunately she's in a nursing home as well. And so, and it's worked itself out to where, we're all, cordial amongst each other and been able to sit down and say, this is what needs to happen. And with her permissions, and then her allowing me to help on some ends as well. And so, but it's quite tedious, and this is just on the back side. But on the beginning side, if there's issues, I mean, just right now, for example, your mom and dad are healthy. And so they may have a few ailments of, maybe diabetes or high blood pressure or whatever. Just them communicating with you in regards to their medical, their doctors, all of that, and what their wishes are moving forward.
Right.
Because, like, for example, my mom ended up needing a feeding tube when she had that stroke.
Okay.
Well, my mom and I had that conversation that she was like, I am not. She goes, if it gets to a point to where I can't feed myself and I can't, and I'm not aware, she's like, I don't want that, And then I had my siblings saying, well, if all she needs is a feeding tube, and she could still be here, let's. And I'm like, Mama did not want that,
Yeah.
And so it was one of those. It's those things that you don't even think to ask. But as, with her living with me and being able to have those conversations, and as, she got older and different ailments were popping up, we were able to have those conversations.
Yeah. These are things that don't even cross your awareness.
Yeah.
Because
I'm telling you, in the moment, those doctors are just like, what do you want to do? What do you want to do?
Yeah.
You need to sign here. You need to, and you're just like, hold on. This is my mom's life, And so some of those decisions I was able to just, be able to make without hesitation, because she and I had talked about it.
Thankfully so.
Thankfully.
Yeah. So you're assessing, having the conversation of what their final wishes are. You also need to get the power of attorney, which that's a topic that we actually are going to come back to. But beyond that, some of the questions that you might have to ask, really trying to figure out, if we're in a situation, you're at that crossroads.
Yeah.
And you're trying to figure out, what level of care
Yeah.
does my mama, does my daddy need? So you're talking to the doctor.
Yeah.
And you kind of need to, know a real assessment of your loved one's condition. So you're wondering, what does your parents say their needs are? And then what is it that you actually see? Tell me why you distinguish that.
I'll give you an example. My mom, for example, was like, oh, I don't need, I'm good. I'm good, and
Don't
I'm
worry
like,
about me.
I'm okay. And then I was like, well, Mom, I noticed, you didn't take your meds in the evening. I'm noticing, And so it's those little things that you're observing. Like, how about we just get you a little compartment and put your meds in there for you? They have an AM and a PM. I'm good. I know when to take my pills. And you're like, okay. I said, but I promise you this is going to make things better. And so being observant of some of these things, like I caught her, repeating a lot of things in regards to her memory. I caught her, just how you said, there was some times where she put on the same pants, and I didn't wear those pants yesterday. And I'm like, yes, you did, Mama, And so when you go to the doctor with them and you're listening, you gotta kind of, how you said, be a little more proactive in regards to things that you can do to kind of help them still feel like they're in control.
Yeah, yeah.
But at the same time, you've put these things in place for them.
You're taking notes of this, in whatever amount of time, I assume, so that when you do, because for me, I go to the doctor right now, and I forget how my hip felt, a month ago.
Right.
Or I forget how bad that indigestion was, and I'm like, oh, I should have wrote that down.
Yeah.
So I do better now, but I imagine in that situation, you being the observer, the objective observer, you've got to take some notes on this.
Right.
And then let's just say that, you come to the doctor and you realize, okay, we need to intervene somehow. So you're saying that, does the parent need rehabilitation?
Yes.
Because in a stroke situation,
Correct.
that is critical.
Right.
And possibly the difference between
Yeah.
good quality of life versus
like
not so
my
good.
mom hated that I made sure home health came. I mean, so when we'd go to the doctor, he'd ask, well, are you getting some exercise? And she's, yeah. And I'm like, no, she's not, And he's, and she's like,
Don't be
yes.
tattling on me.
Yeah. And she's like, well, are you getting some sun and you going out? And she's like, yeah. And I'm like, no, she's not. And so, and so it'd be some things like that where I'd be like, if we had home health, a PT could come out, and give her a little physical therapy and exercise with her, occupational therapy, stuff like that. He'd ask her, different personal questions about, incontinence for, or just, her eating habits or something like that, or her swallowing, just her basic swallowing,
Ooh, okay.
Yeah,
All
and I
right.
was just like, no. And she, well, when you eat your food, everything, she's, yeah, I'm good. I eat good. And I'm like, no. I said she struggles a little bit with. And so these are things that she's not observing that she's doing that I have observed. And so in regards to rehabilitation, I'm like, hey, you know what? If we could have home health come out for a little while, for a couple of weeks, and just kind of put some of those systems back in place, give her a little boost, I said, I think that would help. And then what also helped too is I made sure her caregiver was there with them so that the caregiver learned those techniques as well.
Oh, okay. All right. That's a really good tip.
Yeah.
And even, when you have home health care come in, the other thing is the environment itself.
Yeah.
So you even say to ask, are home renovations needed for
Yes,
this?
yes.
So what might that include?
So like, for example, my mom, she was very slew-footed, and then it got to a point to where she wouldn't pick her feet up. And so, or her balance would be off or whatever. So, like in her bathroom, you want to put some hold bars in there, so that way when she sits on the toilet, she can grab onto a bar. When she gets in the shower, the little hold bars as well. She didn't want to use her walker. And so it was just different things that, as she did, I think maybe the last couple of months, she started using it more. But you want to be able to have, like, I was blessed where she didn't need a wheelchair, which means, some people need to have a ramp installed in order for them to, get into their home instead of struggling to go up a step.
Yeah.
I mean, you'll be shocked that 2 steps, how hard that is for them to get up. 2 steps, that lift up and lift up, I mean,
Because that's body weight.
it's huge, And you're like, oh, it's just 2 steps. They can get through, and you're just like, but
And then you got to do it every day.
every day.
That's,
In and out of the
okay.
bed, even in and out of the bed.
Yeah.
A bar there to help you because it's so low. Or if it's
Gotcha.
too high, yeah.
And then, you mentioned also about memory care.
Yeah.
Which I'm not an expert, but I would guess that that's probably more of an issue to more people than they would admit,
True.
needing some type of memory care. Because mama would look fine.
Oh, would look perfectly fine.
But
yes.
what else is happening in there. So
I mean, it's so cute. I mean, you're in the moment, you're able to laugh it off, but then, and not laugh it off, but you're able to embrace it like, oh, and I'll give you an example. She was one of her long lost cousins. My mom hadn't spoken to this lady in 20 plus years. She calls and she's like, hey, I heard your mom's with you. I want to talk to you, Mom. Is there a way? I says, yeah. My mom got on the phone with her and was, yeah, girl. And for a good 20 minutes. Hung up the phone and now who was that who I was talking to? And I was just like, Mama. And she was like, well, she was on a roll. I just let her talk.
She was sweet. So
sweet as pie. And you're sitting there going, oh my gosh. And so, some memory care is different when it's a safety issue. My mom, thank God, I never had to worry about her trying to cook, or going there. I did have to, concern myself for a minute of her trying to exit the house. Some people, I've had a client where the parent just got up and walked out, and next thing you know, they're down the street. I mean, those issues are highly concerning, and that's where you do want to consider a memory care facility. When it's issues where it's starting to affect their safety of you and them. So, I was blessed in that situation. I had dogs, number one, that kept her on her toes and barked. And then I also had a camera in the house, and so it would ding me when that door would open. If I had a little bell on one of her doors to let me know when I was asleep if she was moving around. It's different things.
These are things and I'm thinking you don't think about those things until I won't say a mistake, but
until it happens.
Something happens. Yeah. And you're just like, oh, okay, now we got to react to that. Yeah, I guess you are kind of in a reactionary mode.
You are. Because, she would get up in the middle of the night and she'd want some water or something. And you're just like, okay. And like sometimes, it was one time she went into the refrigerator and she thought she was getting ice cream and it was mayonnaise. Stuff like that. And the reason, it wasn't that she didn't turn the light on. She just opened the refrigerator up and just grabbed it.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, no, let's. And so it's things like that that you.
That's a lot.
Yeah, where when it's a safety issue, you definitely want to look into, if you have to go that route.
Right.
Of a memory care. Yeah.
Yeah, and you've got, when someone is going through this, we'll say that they're lucky enough to be at the beginning stages.
Yeah.
That when you are assessing your parents' needs, you have identified 3 things that they need to consider. And one of the things that you've already talked about was their physical needs.
Yes.
And you mentioned going up 2 steps being a thing. Is there an injury, a broken hip or whatever?
Right.
So how often is that? I mean, is that usually the trigger when people realize something's wrong? When
the physical, no. I mean, it really ranges. I mean, my mom started off with her issues of the dementia and her diabetes getting out of control was consistent headaches. She had consistent headaches and she was constantly dizzy. I mean, it wasn't a day that went by. So it could be physical, it could be mental, it could be even emotional. My mom went through a stage of depression, at one time as well.
Understandable.
And so, I mean, it's just really getting in there and being observant of your parent, I was blessed to where my mom and I were that close. So I would know some things that, I'm like,
Because the other thing that you can say to consider is there a need for cognitive support?
Yes.
So, I mean, like you said, dementia with your mom. What else could be a sign that is notable?
As far as cognitive, you mean? Let's say that, number one, you're going to hear them repeat themselves a lot. You'll hear them repeat the same thing a lot, and you're like, yeah. And you're just like, she said that 10 times.
Yeah, you humor them at first, and then you take note of it.
That is correct.
Okay.
Or you'll notice, meds, like I said, I noticed she would take her morning meds and sometimes wouldn't take her evening meds. And then it was times also where she'd get her days, mixed up. And I'm like, Mama, it's 6 in the evening. I thought it was 6 in the morning. And I'm like, no, ma'am,
Gotcha.
So you have issues like that. You have issues of, when they want to eat, when they don't want to eat, that throws them off. Their sleeping pattern, that throws them off on the cognitive. If they sleep during the day and then they're up all night, then they're thinking, it's so many areas of that to where you have to be just very observant, because my mama would want to mainly sleep through the day, of getting her days. And I didn't understand that because we were on a very structured schedule, okay, it was time to take our bath. Okay, you know what? We're going to watch about 45 more minutes of this movie and it's time to go to bed. Yeah.
Right,
but
right.
I didn't realize she'd get into bed and she'd be wide awake and I'm knocked out.
Yeah, and who knows what could happen
exactly
in that time.
Yeah.
Because your third consideration that you said is that there could be a combination of the physical and the cognitive
Absolutely.
that you need to pay attention
Absolutely.
to. Ooh, girl.
Yeah.
You're teaching us a lot, and I'm processing at the same time, and I'm just wondering, like, there is a human that is in the middle of all of this, and how do you take care of yourself?
Honestly, that has not been happening. And when I say that, I'm blessed to where, how you say it, that I am healthy, but you're just rolling. You're rolling with it, And when I say it hasn't happened, it has not been a priority. I'll say that.
Okay.
And you have to make it a priority.
Big time.
Yeah, you really do. And when I say that, there are times when I'll go out with my girls, I'll say, hey, they'll be like, let's get out, and I'm like, yeah, I have a friend who has a ranch, and so she'll be like, girl, come on here, and I'll get my mom's caregiver to stay, a night, and I'll go out there and breathe for a minute. You do have to take some time for you. I scheduled an automatic massage once a month.
Hey, okay.
And so that's something that's automatic for as self-care. That it makes me, they'll call me and, hey, don't forget your appointment. I'm like, yes, I do have an appointment. So yeah.
Right.
So it's those little things, that you just got it, yeah. But in the moment, you're rolling. I'm not going to lie. Caregiving is a lot. It's a lot. I look back on it, and I don't regret it now because of what I've learned, of course, and as I've transitioned and been just, how you said, the blessings of going through it were challenging, but the blessings in the end have been even just more monumental. But I will say, as far as taking care of yourself, it is definitely one of those situations you have to make a priority.
Yeah.
Mentally, physically.
Big time,
Yeah.
big time. So what is next for you? Business-wise, personal, what's coming next?
I was so glad when I reached out to you and I said, hey, are we still on, because we originally were scheduled, a couple of weeks ago, and then that's when the situation with my mom.
Yep.
This happening to my parents has motivated me so much more of like, look at what you did, girl. And that was with your mama and your daddy, And imagine others out there that, hey, I just need a little guidance,
Yeah.
I just need someone to just take this little bit off my plate, Because again, like I said, you get so caught up in the emotions, and you need someone on the outside to just say, hey, I got this, And that makes it so much easier and smoother for you. So I'm excited to really push this, get out there and help others.
Okay, because I like how you said that just now, that you're in the emotion of it, and to give, like I said, the person that is in the middle of this, giving them the grace of having that moment. You do grieve, even while your parent is still here. You grieve the healthy, vibrant person they once were.
Exactly. Yeah.
And you transition into caregiver, and that is a different person
that
you're caring for.
It is, absolutely.
And when the time comes and they transition, there's a recovery in there as well. And so I guess with you and your business, your services, this is the legacy that you're building
It
in their
is.
memory.
It is. I'm excited. I've already sat and told myself I'm gonna make a little scholarship fund for both of them.
love
Yeah,
that.
a little
Love it, love it.
foundation for them.
Yeah.
That's my hope and my prayer, and they get out there, and yeah, I'm motivated for it because it's so much. I mean, it's needed in so many ways, but it's also one of those situations where you're like, I cannot imagine just not knowing anything, and you're just like, I was blessed that I had 7 years to figure it out
Yeah.
with my mom. You have some people that they get hit with it just like that,
Yeah.
and it happens quickly, and
It's a whirlwind.
it's a whirlwind.
Yeah.
And so I was very blessed to be able to actually, okay, what? And learn throughout all of that. I mean, I didn't learn overnight. I mean, literally, my mom was with me 7 years, and I'm still, like I said, as we come to a closure with her passing, I learned even more. And so I can't imagine someone going through it in 6 months. Their parent went from here to
Yeah.
0 to
Yeah.
60.
Yeah.
And so to be able to take just a piece of that away and help is huge.
That is beautiful.
Yeah.
That is very beautiful.
Yeah.
Well, we are building some things to, help with the bigger picture of
Yeah.
where people's needs are. So you have a few things that are coming up. So
Yeah.
one thing for folks that are watching this episode right now, they're going to go to the link in the show notes and they're going to fill out a form because you actually have this in a document to
Yeah.
guide them so
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
they can print this out and
Yeah.
take it with them to
Yeah.
the doctor's appointment or sit down and have that conversation with their parent and they can start taking those notes.
Correct.
And then beyond that, you are going to be building some instruction on some educational
Yeah.
materials.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's coming soon. And
Yeah. With the
we're-
help of Upskill Services. Yeah.
Heck
I'm
yeah.
excited. Yeah.
Upskill there you
Upskill
look at you.
Services. Yeah. They're going to help me build my courses. And yeah.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, it didn't even hit me in regards to whether, that a lot of this is educational information.
Right.
And so when I spoke to Upskill, they were like, hey, we can create a course just for your power of attorney, because it's so funny. The first minute they called me and they were like, oh, I need to do this, I need to do this. The first question I asked is I said, do you have the rights to be able to, maneuver and do all of this? And so we can't really get started with, trying to put some things in place if they don't have permissions and, legal documents in place to be able
Right.
to make those decisions,
Right. Which you have now taught us. There is a medical power of attorney and a financial power of
Correct.
attorney.
And then you can just have an overall power of attorney that gives you both,
God. Okay.
Yeah,
I'm glad
like
you
I had it
clarified
over
that.
both for my mom. And
Gotcha.
so, some people, like my dad, for example, he only gave medical power of attorney. He wouldn't give anybody financial power of attorney.
Look at him being slick.
Yeah. And my mom was like,
Okay.
I don't do it all, just to make sure all is taken care of. Yeah.
Gotcha.
My daddy
Okay.
was like, no, I don't need you to over my finances, just my
Don't,
medical.
don't be in my pockets.
Yeah. Yeah.
I got you. Okay. Well, see, we've learned a lot. Good Lord, you are teaching all of us.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. I'm still learning, but I mean, again, I'm thankful. Yeah.
Yeah. I appreciate you being here. I mean, there's somebody watching this right now that is needing to hear it in this exact moment. So the service that you are putting out there, the legacy that you're building in your parents' memory.
Yeah.
It is admirable. We all appreciate it. And I mean, at the bare minimum, we want to get the word out.
Yes. Yeah.
But I also want folks to understand that, you can get support
Absolutely.
in this difficult time.
Yes.
And like you said, giving them the grace to, be with mama or daddy, the emotions behind that,
Yeah.
and then hand off some of
Exactly.
this to the professional that
Absolutely.
is able to
because
to
it's a
guide them.
lot. Like it's a lot where you're trying to make the right decisions, but at the same time, you want to, be in that moment with your parent, and you handling business and all these calls coming through on
Yeah.
so many levels. You're just like,
Yeah.
yeah.
All right. Well, thank you, ma'am. We got more coming from you. You're going to keep teaching
We
and
gonna- yeah.
guiding us and
Yeah.
serving us. So, like I said, anybody that is watching this episode right now, I want you to go into the show notes, and there is a link for you to download this document, to get in touch with Chandi Satterwhite with Gen Gap Living. She is going to have a lot more coming. We may have you back on here at some point so that you going to have a thought and you going to say, girl, I got to come and teach him. And you got the open invitation. So
Thank you so much. No, y'all been great. Y'all been awesome.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.